We are ready to scale up our cash grant support to vulnerable families, the most effective form of humanitarian aid. But in Gaza, there is very little to buy. So, ladies and gentlemen of the media, in the circumstances I've just described, a humanitarian ceasefire is the only way to begin to meet the desperate needs of people in Gaza and end their ongoing nightmare. I hope that today's Security Council resolution may help that finally to happen, but much more is needed immediately. Looking at the longer term, I'm extremely disappointed by comment by senior Israeli officials that put the two-state solution into question. As difficult as it might appear today, the two-state solution in line with UN resolutions, international law, and previous agreements is the only path to sustainable peace. Any suggestion otherwise denies human rights, dignity, and hope to the Palestinian people, fueling rage that reverberates far beyond Gaza. It also denies a safe future for Israel. The spillover is already happening. The occupied West Bank is at boiling point. Daily exchanges of fire across the blue line between Lebanon and Israel pose a grave risk to regional stability. Attacks and threats to shipping on the Red Sea by the Houthis in Yemen are impacting shipping with the potential to affect the global supply chains. And beyond the immediate region, the conflict is polarizing communities, feeding hate speech, and fueling extremism. All this poses a significant and growing threat to global peace and security. As the conflict intensifies and the horror grows, we will continue to do our part. We will not give up. But at the same time, it is imperative that the international community speak with one voice for peace, for the protection of civilians, for an end to suffering, and for a commitment to the two-state solution backed with action. Thank you.
Thank you. Anade, Al Jazeera.
Thank you very much, Secretary General. Anada Sitima, Al Jazeera English. On behalf of the UN Correspondents Association, thank you very much for this briefing. My question to you, it's been over 2 weeks since you invoked Article 99, and up until this point, until today, the Security Council has failed to act, and we haven't seen a resolution until the resolution we just saw passed. This resolution calls for an increase to aid, but it does not join your call for a ceasefire. When you invoked Article 99, were you hoping for more urgency on the part of the Security Council and perhaps even for them to join your call for a ceasefire?
Of course, I was hopeful. That doesn't mean that things happen according to our hopes. But in any case, today, you can see always a glass as half full or half empty. I hope that today's resolution will make people understand that a humanitarian ceasefire is indeed something that is needed if we want humanitarian aid to be effectively delivered.
Linda, and then Joe.
Secretary General, on behalf of NPR, I was just wondering, the resolution calls for both sides to allow unhindered, safe delivery of aid. We know the status more or less about Israel's role. I was wondering on the other side, in terms of Hamas, how significant is Hamas's control or not allowing access to aid to the people?
Well, we have condemned all violations of international humanitarian law. Violations by Hamas in relation to civilian shields or in relation to the rockets sent to Israel, and the violations done by Israel through this relentless bombardment and the fact that we are having a toll of civilians that is totally unprecedented in all conflicts I've seen until now. So obviously, that is why a ceasefire is needed to stop all obstacles coming from wherever they come. A humanitarian ceasefire.
But I'm sorry again, but just how significant is Hamas's denial of access to aid? I mean, is it minor or is it, a medium amount?
I think it is one of the contributions that need to be taken into account.
Joe, and then
But it's obviously not the major factor when we look at the situation today in Gaza.
Yes, Joseph Klein of Canada Free Press. First, I want to wish you and your family a very happy holiday.
Happy holiday too.
Thank you. My question also involves Hamas. Do you really realistically think that a viable, sustainable two-state solution is possible as long as Hamas exists, with their threats to repeat October 7th over and over again? And what is your comment on the fact that Israel has offered, I believe it's at least a 7-day pause to allow the release of more hostages and more aid to come into Gaza, but Hamas has flatly turned that down. They're demanding a complete, permanent ceasefire. Thank you.
First of all, I do believe that we need a humanitarian ceasefire. That has been what I believe it is needed. But of course, we are favorable to any pause that can lead to improvement in humanitarian aid and to the exchange of prisoners. And we know that negotiations are taking place. I've been actively in contact with Qatar, with Egypt, and with others, and I hope that these negotiations will be able to lead to new opportunities for the release of hostages. But our position in relation to the release of hostages is very clear. We believe that there must be an immediate and unconditional release of hostages. Your first question was?
Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, well, my first question, they kind of relate to each other. The first question was whether you believe
yes,
realistically that there could be a two-state solution as long as Hamas exists. And then, in responding to the second question, I specifically would be interested in knowing your comment on Hamas's refusal to accept even a 7-day pause. They want all or nothing.
I mean, both sides apparently want all of nothing. And that is why we do not manage to have an agreement. I think it's important to have spirit of compromise. But the first question is very important. We believe that the legitimate representative of the Palestinian people is the Palestinian Authority. And what we want to see is the creation of conditions that will allow the Palestinian Authority to assume responsibilities in Gaza. And that is, in our opinion, the solution to allow for the two-state solution to become a reality.
Dennis, then Deji, then we'll have to close it.
Dennis Hakish of TASS News Agency. Turning back from Gaza, what is the current situation with grain deal, and do you plan to communicate with Russian officials or maybe with Russian President Vladimir Putin?
Sorry,
The grain deal.
we have been in contact with both sides, trying to explore new forms that I don't think the repetition of the grain deal would make sense. But I'm a strong believer that it would be very interesting if we would be able to have conditions for freedom of navigation in the Black Sea.
And
Last question, Deji. No, sorry, Deji, last question.
Secretary General, Deji Xu with China Central Television. Let me ask you a broader picture question. It seems like in 2023, it seems very chaotic. We have two conflicts going on. We have SDGs even driving away further, and the United Nations and you yourself has been put into huge pressure. Where's the silver lining? What kind of hope do you see for 2024?
Well, we have in the UN a very important process taking place, the Summit of the Future. And in the Summit of the Future, I hope it will be possible for us to agree on a new agenda for peace with a more holistic approach to prevention. We had yesterday a very important victory in the Security Council after many years in which I'm fighting for the need to have peace-enforcing operations done by our African partners of the African Union with mandates by the Security Council and assessed contributions. It was possible to have a resolution of the Security Council that creates the possibility of funding at 75%. It was one of the key elements of the agenda for peace, but there are many others. On the other hand, we have already, we will be publishing, I believe, today, the report of our high-level panel on artificial intelligence, and I hope it will be possible to have some form of networked governance of artificial intelligence with flexibility, of course, taking into account different situations around the world, but that will create more opportunities for artificial intelligence to be a force for good and minimize the risks of artificial intelligence. And I hope to see the UN in the center of that effort. We have simultaneously a number of other very important questions on the table in which member states will be able to take decisions in relation to participation of youth and future generations in decision making, in relation to the reform of the international financial system, reform of the Security Council. So I see that independently of the crises that are happening, I see that there is a dynamic effort within the UN to look seriously into the need to reform multilateralism and to make multilateralism stronger and more effective in a world that is becoming multipolar, but multipolarity will not guarantee peace if there is not a strengthening of multilateral governance institutions. So I'm very optimistic about the work that can be done within the UN, knowing that some of these crises that you mentioned will be very difficult to overcome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.